Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the Love and Light Podcast, episode 44. I am Willie Lightfoot.
And I am Lovely Warren.
And we are the hosts of the Love and Light Podcast, where we lift up people and the things we love and talk about the things that people don't talk about at all or don't talk about nearly enough.
Right.
Welcome you back. We're powered by 103.9 WDKX. But before we get going, we like to tell our listening family that we encourage you to download the WDKX mobile app. You can even text or call the WDKX frontline number at 585-678-1039 and tell us how you like the show. Give us new show topics. You can also use the open mic feature on the app to leave us a message about the show. Now, for this Love and Light segment, we're talking about child support. The child is mine. The doggone child is mine.
Yes, the child is mine. Lord have mercy. Child support, many people know that I practice family law now, and it is really a big topic. I get a lot of calls about child support. But before we get into the nitty gritty on child support, we wanted to recognize Rochester's very own Curtis Jones.
I love segment. Curtis Jones. Raw. Rochester's raw.
Yeah. So if you haven't been paying attention,
you've been sleeping under a rock.
Right. We either had a bobcat,
mountain
lion, something,
a big dog
around here that set Rochester by storm for a couple days a few weeks ago. And there was this viral interview. Interview of this gentleman from Rochester named Curtis Jones.
He saw him, see me, see him.
Who branded the RAR term, and just really, for a couple days, it was just like everybody was talking about it, showing up. He was going, the mountain lion was going into different businesses.
It came to my barbershop.
It came to your barbershop.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was just really cool to see, and a lighthearted sort of, rather, if you don't believe it's true or not, the fact that, the community was just truly uplifted by this whole, situation. Thank you, Curtis Jones.
Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate that.
So going into child support, it is a very, very touchy topic, right?
It is.
So when you think about all of, in New York State, child support is governed by the Child Support Standards Act. And I think that a lot of people think that child support magistrates and judges and all of that, I'm not giving legal advice here, but just want to talk about in general terms, the fact that, these are standards that are regulated by law. Right. And so in general, when you have to pay child support for one child is 17%. For two children is 25% of your income. And then it goes up and up from there. Of course, there are other factors that are considered and can be considered, and more so considered because the legislature about a year and a half ago put in a new provision in a law that allows the magistrate or the judge to consider someone's financial situation, other things that they have going on when they're doing child support. Well, the big thing is for people that have child support payments is, my income has changed. I was incarcerated and I came out and I have this large bill, right? And they're very, very, upset about it. I couldn't earn income and all that. The thing about it, even when you're incarcerated, you can file for a child support modification. And you have to, because child support don't know you locked up. Right. You know what I mean? So people think oh, well, I have this big, bill and they know I'm locked up. No, they don't. It's two completely different systems, right? So if you were, out and making money and you were paying $100 a week in child support, right? So that $400 a month that you were paying, if you're incarcerated, you're still owing that. That's still accruing, even though you're not paying, right? And so unless you go back to court, unless you file for a child support modification, that is accruing. So people have come out of, prison and jail owing thousands of dollars because they think like, oh, well, it stopped. No, it hasn't. And so I often tell people that call me after the fact, and generally you can't like go back and retroactively like suspend and say, oh, well, I was incarcerated, so therefore, I don't owe this money. No, that's very, very hard to do.
Can I ask you a question? So, okay, when a person has child support, obviously when talking courts, it's legal. So with the criminal side, you can get a public defender or someone that can help you, like if you can't afford a lawyer. So, because obviously this has to be negotiated, right? There, I think it would behoove you to negotiate this because you'll probably get more of a fair ordeal, if you will. So for a person who doesn't know how to navigate all of this, and then they go like, okay, are there lawyers that work on behalf of people like the same on the criminal side?
Yes, you are. So parents are generally, if you're under income, are assigned representatives. So I'm one of those representatives that get assigned. We're on a panel and assigned counsel panel. So you can either have the public defender, a conflict defender, and if either of those offices can't handle the case, then you would get assigned a private attorney that's on the assigned counsel panel, right? And so up front, generally you have to file the petition first, right? But the petition is very, very straightforward. It's not, you can get them offline. It's not very complicated to fill out because they're really, really, and I must say that New York State does a great job with all of their forms being online so that people can either print them out. They're very easy to understand. So
when you talk about petitions, that's petitioning after the fact, or how is child support automatic, or does someone have to start that process?
Someone has to start that process, right? So just because you have a child doesn't necessarily mean that automatically you start the process of paying child support. Someone has to file documentation in court.
Typically do we find out what's more often the mom or
whoever has the children?
Okay.
So sometimes grandparents and whoever has the children, the guardian, the parent that has the children, they're the person that generally files for child support. And when it's filed, then it's a process, right? And so a lot of things are factored. As a child in daycare, so somebody has to pay for that. Is the child, their medical provided, Medicaid, other things. So Medicaid, their medical has to be provided for. So all of these charges or add-ons are a part of the child support payment.
Well, I would tell you one of the things, because there's child support, like you said, was sensitive. And from the male perspective, I have family members, friends, people in the barbershop. We've had this conversation a lot of times, and I've run across men who get extremely angry about child support. And that's why I wanted to call it The Child Is Mine, because regardless of how you feel about that mother or how the circumstances happened before the hanky-panky, there should have probably been a conversation, because obviously now you have this child who didn't ask to be here. So there's an emotional side, there's a personal side to this, but then there's a legal, financial side to it as well. And so I want us to look at all of those sides to say, hey, now that this child is here, responsibility of having to take care of this child has to be done.
Right.
I know from the barber's perspective, and having a barber examination site here in Rochester, that a lot of barbers can't get licensed as a barber or a professional, because my understanding is that New York State licensing, and that goes for anyone who carries a New York State license,
a professional license,
can, if you're in arrears of your child support, that you can't hold a New York State license.
Well, you could be denied, or your license could be suspended if you're more than four months behind, right? And so those are all penalties that you can also go to jail.
Now that's a, people can argue and say, okay, well, here it is again. How can I help my child in the system if I'm in arrears and I can't pay, so my license has been taken from me, or I'm being denied let's take the barber example. I'm being denied a barber license because, and then we know some people are doing this intentionally because they don't want the mom to know how much they're making.
Mhm.
But then, or the guardian or whatever. But then some people are like, I can't get licensed, so now I can't work. So then this is creating another barrier for me taking care of my responsibilities.
No, I definitely understand that.
Mhm.
But what I recommend, and I tell people all the time, is running from it is not
not gonna
going
solve it.
to solve the problem.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
And so what a lot of people do is they don't deal with it.
That's
Right. And
right.
so you lost your job
Mhm.
and you have this high child support payment based on that income.
Mhm.
Right. Immediately, the first thing that you should do after you lose your job is go down and file for child support modification. Right.
Mhm.
And so, so that they can adjust your child support payments.
Mhm.
Right. Because it is going to accrue. It is going to, they're
So
going
it just
to
ain't
do
gonna
it.
go away.
Right.
It's not
Right.
So that's not like a credit. After 7 years, it's just going.
No.
So it don't go away after 7 years.
No. And you can, if you're found to have willfully,
Mhm.
to willfully, have not paid child support and all of that, then you can be incarcerated.
Well, how about this one? Well, when the child turn 18 or turn a certain year, then it goes away then
No,
too.
it doesn't.
So when they turn 21,
No. And definitely if the
Mm.
child goes to college, if they're still in school,
Mhm.
Extended past 18,
Mhm.
right? Now, a lot of times what happens is, people, the child, they're an adult now and they're living on their own. And people say, well, why should I still have to pay child support when the child's an adult? Because it accrued when the child was a child, right?
Retro.
So it's that payment is for the mom or whoever the guardian is when that child was a child.
Mhm.
And those calculations, and again, the legislature did put in a new provision, I believe like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that allows for other things to be considered. At one point in time, it was just flat out.
I was just going to ask you. So, like I said, I think that's what's been, most people's experience is going based on what their uncle or somebody in their family told them. Oh, they just going to take 17% and they don't care about nothing else. And what you're saying is, and I'm asking your experience to understand the courts and you mitigating this. The courts do take under consideration other people's situation. Like if I was making,
and you got to prove it,
50,000,
right? You just can't come in and say, oh, well, I'm taking care of my grandma. I'm, and I have to pay, X amount of money in rent
So
and
have
all that.
receipts.
You have to be able to show and present a case that these things need to be considered. And this is the reason why I can't pay that 17%. I can't pay that 25%. And the courts do allow for like leeway, right? So I've had, judges that with children that are on Medicare or on Medicaid, right? And it would cost like the father, an astronomical amount of money because, healthcare is a lot of money, right? An additional $300-$400 a month to actually pay for medical, and judges have said like, okay, well, we'll keep them on the Medicaid, we'll suspend your obligation to provide for the medical, which is a help. But the fact of the matter is this is what I implore people to do: don't run from it. If you're on child support or about to be on child support, don't run from it. And I also go through the process. Some people don't want to put themselves on child support, right? But I've had people that have been paying like monthly, right? The money that they're providing to the other parent sometimes is more than what you would be paying if you were on child support, right? So don't look at it as, a negative.
I'm a witness of that. That happened to me. I have 2 children that I was raising that were not mine, but I was raising them, and I was giving a certain amount, right, for their support to a family member. And then the family member, that wasn't enough, so it took me to court. And when they took me to court, the judge said, oh, I'm giving you less than what I was giving.
So sometimes it literally works out that way. but and some people are afraid, right? To go in and to, like, say for example, they're the the dad or the parent that doesn't have the child, right? So you're the non-custodial parent, and they're afraid to go into child support and either put themselves on it, right? Or even deal with the issue of what's coming down the pike. Don't just walk away from it.
Oftentimes, and the reason that I hear, especially coming from men, that they don't want to deal with this because of there's so much dysfunction between the relationship that the parents have with each other, and oftentimes the child is the victim of all of that because they don't have nothing to do with what happened between the parents. So they think that they're hurting the parent, but they're really hurting the child. And so, you can and to have these healthy dialogue and to address these issues doesn't mean you have to necessarily deal with the parent, right? I mean, you can go through this process and not have to.
You're both going to be in court, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, the other parent isn't going to come in and say, oh, well, you have to pay X amount of dollars, right? No, you can make whatever arrangement that you want to make, right? So sometimes if the calculation is very high and you, as a parent, say like, okay, well, I know that I'm entitled to $500, but I'll accept $300. I'm working full time, based on how we're living, I'll accept $300. The court will consider that. The court will say, okay, fine. They'll accept that. You guys can make out a different arrangement, based on your discussion and your relationship, and you can work that out. But also, I find that, a lot of times I hear, well, she doing this with the money, or he doing this with the money, and he going out clubbing, or he buying sneakers, or he's doing that. And at the end of the day, that's not for the court to decide, right? You decided that you were going to lay with this person.
That's right.
You decided that you were going to have a child with this person, right?
Or even if you didn't decide that, that's what happened.
No, you did decide that
when you made the decision.
When you did, absolutely. There's no, I didn't decide.
I don't think that was the thought process with a lot of people.
Listen, there is no, I didn't decide, right? You decided,
right,
that
it was a decision.
Absolutely.
And when that's part of the consequences of that decision that you made.
You cannot choose the consequences of your actions.
So I think when we look at lessons learned or things that we want to encourage folks to do in regards to the child is mine and child support, you cannot avoid this situation. And in most instances, these children, unfortunately, are the victims of the dysfunction that comes when someone does run away from this responsibility.
Absolutely. The children are the victims, but also, mind you, DSS comes after you, right? So the parent's going to come after you if somebody's taking care of your children, whether you're taking care of them or not, right? And if they know who the father is or know who the other parent is, and they're going to come after them about getting that support. And we definitely have to be, I feel that the number one thing that I hear from, whether it's mom, dad, or whatever, whoever is owing the child support, is it's too much. I can't afford it. I have all this in arrears. And I say, why did you wait so long? Why did you wait so long? Why didn't you go and get a modification today? Go and get a modification.
Start the modification.
Start the process. Go before the court. Stop running from the court system, because this problem is not going to go away. I often tell people to put themselves on child support, right? And go through that process, right? Because they say, oh, well, I kept all my receipts. I got this, I got that. But if you're on child support, and you're providing money on the side or whatever outside of child support, and you think, oh, well, I don't have to pay that child support, that $100 a week, because I bought these sneakers or I bought this, back to school supplies. You're wrong. That money is still accruing within that system.
Now, is child support tax deductible?
No.
You can't. So you can't, like, whatever monthly that's coming out every week or every month.
No.
You can't say that decreases your income.
No, it's based off of your net. No, wait, hold on. Is it gross? It's based off of your gross pay. So not what you take home, what you actually earn. So if you make $80,000 a year, child support is based off of your $80,000 a year, not off
Some
of
people could argue that that's a gap. That's wrong because I don't actually make that much. That's not what I'm bringing home, right? So I can see how.
I mean, all of those things are, everything is.
But you still gotta pay. You gotta pay. You can't ignore it. You gotta go get the modifications. Start that immediately. Get that done. It's first of all, I think it brings you peace of mind as the provider. You should love your child. You should be wanting to have the best for your child. You should be wanting to make sure that you're giving your response. Like you said, you made the decision. You got to be accountable for the decision that you made. And I think the people that I've talked to who are hiding or who are running from this stuff are very angry and they don't have peace. And I'll be telling them, you if you deal with this, you'll find that you'll have a lot more peace in your life because you'll be doing what you need to be doing to be responsible for your children. And what I would hope is you wouldn't want a child growing up to be an adult later down the road. And this is fracturing relationships between family members and et cetera and et cetera. And so I think it's a great topic that we're talking about because I know it impacts a lot of families.
It does impact a lot of families. And I just want to encourage people that, children didn't ask to be here, right?
Amen.
The things that we see in, and that family court lawyers see on a daily basis and the court sees, and we see some horrific things, right? But, for parents that can get along or, try to create an environment that is safe and that's safe for the child, right? The toxicity that is involved in the feelings that have been hurt and all of the things that take place in families, it's disheartening when you look at the children who love their mom, love their dad, right? And they want a relationship with the other parent. They want to have a safe relation, if it's safe, if it's beneficial, right? I'm not saying put children in a negative situation,
right, sure.
But if you can, if it's not abusive, if it's just I feel a certain way, I don't like him because he cheated on me, or she. Listen, put that aside. Think about your child and what your child needs, because the world is not going to be kind to them.
Amen. Episode 44, the Love and Light podcast. I'm going to tell you to remember to keep your light shining. You can't put a lampshade on the sun, so make sure you keep your light shining. May God bless you. May God keep you.
Dance like nobody's watching, sing like there's no one listening, live like it's heaven on earth, and love like you've never been hurt. This is the Love and Light podcast powered by 103.9 WDKX.